Redo of Healer is a revenge story that may make you think of the rising of the S.H.I.E.L.D. hero, but this is far more graphic, violent, and Kyoruga revenge is active. But just between me and you guys, I love Redo Healer. Okay, let's get into it. In the original timeline, Kyoru was just a boy from a small village, blessed with a healing power, and thinking with his power, he'll protect his village and the world. However, as time went on, he was forced into becoming a drug addict, a slave, and despite being a recognized hero, not a soul treated him as such. But, in time, he built a resistance to the drugs he was forced to become addicted to, and when facing the Demon Lord, Kyoru revealed he was no longer an addict and defeated the Demon Lord single-handedly. Thus, he got the Philosopher's Stone and decided to turn back time so that he could not only get revenge, but rewrite the world into something fairer. Why? Well, beyond his own need to not be used and abused, he recognized that humans massacring demi-humans, stealing their land, enslaving them, that caused the trouble humanity is dealing with. But, thanks to the power of spin, people never take account of it. So with Kyoru saving the Demon Lord, more so than killing her, he is gifted with the ability to remember his past life and began his quest. That is, take down the eldest princess of the Gyro Kingdom, Flare, the hero of magic, and bring down her tyrannical kingdom. One of the reasons I brought up the rising of the S.H.I.E.L.D. hero is because of the disrespect Kyoru experiences at the hands of Flare, being similar to what Naofumi experienced with mine. However, in the rising of the S.H.I.E.L.D. hero, Naofumi is just accused of rape and isolated. Kyoru suffers throughout the whole journey of defeating the Demon Lord, and when it comes to Naofumi, he gets revenge by winning over the people. Is for Kyoruga? Well, he'll take a more direct approach, but what really helps Kyoru stand out is the extent of the abuse he suffered. From being repeatedly drugged, a borderline slave, and who knows what else, the level of suffering goes beyond being a social pariah. And considering that we see Kyoru have sex, take drugs to build up an immunity, and that's in the first episode, imagine what will come in the future? Especially in terms of killing or embarrassing Flare and perhaps on behalf of the demi-humans, bringing balance back to the world. Violence and sex are often found in action anime, but one of the issues we've always found is that both rarely add value to the story or even the development of a character, or a relationship. Now, granted, he is in a harem, but it's clear the women approached him, both are getting pleasure, and it further enhances the idea that while Kyoru is the protagonist, he isn't a saint. He isn't some pure warrior trying to correct his world's timeline. He is still a boy who has just came of age in his urges. Which, if a beautiful woman wants to satisfy him, he isn't going to say no. Kyoru is a gifted healer, for sure, and the Gyro Kingdom employs him to use his talents. Even the great swordswoman he heals in this episode looks attractive. With a broken arm he heals with ease. Of course, there's a downside to his power. He can feel the terrible experiences of the person he heals, and he even faints, but overall, his healing power is incredible. He's also able to gain experiences of those he heals, and this is clear when he decides to have sex with the maids in the castle, so that he can absorb their experiences. Kyoru's healing powers are ridiculously overpowered, and it's exciting to watch him break the healer stereotype. He's far from noble, and his intentions are nefarious. Because of this, anyone can see him as a sadistic villain, but after watching Flare's heartless act towards him, In the end of the episode, you want to see Kiryu get his revenge against her. Am I wrong? Okay, that's it for episode 1 guys. If you enjoy this video remember to leave a like and subscribe. Now let's look at Kiryu's power and abilities. Appearance. Kiryu is a young boy of medium height with brown hair and red eyes. Initially, he is dressed in simple clothes he used in the village. Then after the start of his revenge he uses a set of armor he stole from the captain of the guards. When he uses his heal skill, his eyes turn green. His new appearance as Kiryu is just an older version of himself. In his Kira disguise, he gives off a more feminine appearance, a buxom maiden with waist-long brown hair with a red ribbon on the back of the head, except leaving his genital intact. Personality. Initially, Kiryu was a very kind and gentle boy with dreams. When he discovered that he was one of the heroes who would save the world, he was very excited, but he was afraid to use his power when he found out that by healing people, he absorbed their memories and pain. Betrayal. After being betrayed, imprisoned, drugged, tortured, beaten and raped by several people who wanted to break their level limits for a long period of time, Kiryu's kind personality changed completely to that of a man: vindictive, cruel, brutal, unstable, psychopathic, relentless, bloody and sadistic. Because his naive personality was what allowed him to be exploited, Kiryu replaced his old personality with that of a manipulative and cunning misanthrope. Revenge is Kiryu's primary concern, although at least once he has mentioned the possibility of living happily once he has taken vengeance on his abusers. When Setsuna asked him why he seeks revenge so much, Kiryu explains that the idea that those who tortured him can just live their lives without suffering the consequences makes you want to vomit. Another example of his sadistic personality is when Kiryu thoroughly takes pleasure upon taking vengeance, as seen by his happy laughter after having raped Flare and erasing her memories. The only exception shown so far is the Knight Captain, as even after Kiryu turned him into a woman and make them raped by his soldiers as revenge for having raped entire Tana's death, he displays nor happiness nor satisfaction during it and afterwards, presumably because the Knight Captain's actions resulted in the death of many of Kiryu's loved ones. Kiryu becomes completely cold and suffers extreme levels of despair and anguish after losing his last shreds of humanity by becoming the sole survivor of his now deserted village. Now let's look at Kiryu's powers and abilities. Heal. By healing things and concepts, Kiryu performs various abilities from the healer class. Recovery. By manipulating time and matter, Kiryu can return things to their original states and heal deep injuries from himself or others. Initially, using it to heal someone would cause him great pain, but later on he learns how to use this skill without showing any signs of pain at all. Imitation. Every time Kiryu heals someone, he gains the fighting skills and experience from that person. He already used this skill many times before, retaining all the knowledge from different fighters, soldiers and mages. Predator. Can either absorb or copy some of the levels of a person, allowing Kiryu to level up. The same ability can also be used to absorb all the mana from someone, or just a portion if he wants. If the target is a mage or fully dependent on mana, that person gets incapacitated and weakened. Corruption. Destroys the target from the inside by corrupting them. Kiryu usually refers to this ability as a one-hit KO skill. Upgrade. Ability that allows Kiryu to modify things by upgrading them to a desired state. Memory erasure. While touching someone's head, Kiryu can change the memories of an individual and can also erase them at will. He can also force the target to experience memories, as shown with Kiryu Clear It. Okay guys, let's look at episode 2 of the anime. So, unfortunately, Kiryu needs to bide his time and get his drug resistance rather than begin his revenge immediately. This takes a while, and you get a difficult view of watching him drugged and raped. All the while, Flare carts him out when necessary and even adds her few kicks and insults in, and yet some anime fans thinks he shouldn't get his revenge. So while he was tortured he eventually builds up his drug tolerance and his power of alchemy. Thus, he undoes his chains, locks, and if he doesn't kill many using his acquired skills. He even takes the look of one of Flare's most trusted knights, and uses their relationship to kill her guards and make her vulnerable. Now the revenge begins. thus leading to a torture scene that you will be so thankful for being uncensored. For those who have watched the uncensored version, however, the scene get intense. After Kiryu hit Flare with his Excalibur, then he violated her while she was screaming for her life. As of now, Kyoruga's focus is rewriting his narrative, and whether that includes becoming a hero or a villain, in his own way, his main goal now is to get revenge on those who torture him and betray him. Now we will see what he will do after this. Okay, let's look at episode 3 of Redo Healer. Once again, we find ourselves repeatedly asking, what the F, as we see what Kiryu went through. But his actions as Kyoruga still don't imply he desires to be better than his torturers. For about 4 to 6 minutes, in episode 3, it's all about Kiryu being abused. If it isn't Flare pouring the drug over her vagina for him to lick, it is Blade. Out of jealousy, abusing him and also assaulting him to taste Flare. Oh, and we forgot, because Kiryu got an erection from licking Flare and giving her pleasure, she would kick and stomp Kiryu's groin. However, the most disturbing, which I know is strange to say, is how Bullet treated Kiryu. On top of assaulting Kiryu, they also seemed to have a one-sided toxic relationship with them. Like, Bullet was fully in love with Kiryu and seemingly, like Blade, mad that Kiryu and Flare had something going on, like he had a choice. Now this is why I want him to get his revenge. But, to take things to the next level, it seems Bullet liked to doll Kiryu up a bit, and sometimes wanted to kill him so Kiryu would be beautiful and young forever. That just sick me. Anyway, Kyoruga and Freya has too much trauma being associated with the imperial capital, including hearing Princess Norn, Freya's sister, coming back. Kyoruga decides it is time to leave. This is good timing considering, not too long after he leaves, it is realized Leonard is in the dungeon, not Kiryu. But that is a story for another episode. This episode focuses on Kyoruga and Freya heading off to Lanarida, a free city east of the capital. A place that is on a bit of a downturn. Why? Well, a monster's carcass is likely rotting and affecting the water supply. And the city is a bit lawless, and that just means opportunity for Kyoruga. Mind you, not the opportunity to live up to the title of hero, because that is not his desire. Rather, the opportunity to make money with the cure using his blood and make a potion. One he sells, without revealing the mixture, to make sure he has income to fund his travels. With 28 pieces of gold, Kyoruga decides it is a good time to buy a slave. Freya, despite her former life as Flare, doesn't really understand why, but most of Kyoruga's actions perplex her, so this is understandable. Kyoruga wants a slave due to loyalty, and with the slave he chooses, he finds the female, demi-human version of him. And while the goal is to use her to get his revenge, to earn her loyalty, he is going to focus on the demi-human first. However, there remains the question of why they do this. Even if Flare has something about having power over people, why not only have Kiryu strung out on drugs, but pour it over your genitals for him to lick up? Then with a Blade, is it just that she, and queer people in general, can openly express themselves? Was she rejected by Flare? What's the story there? Heck, could that also be Bullet's issue? Redo of Healer really does make me think this is the explicit revenge version of the Rising of the Shield Hero, if Naofumi strictly focused on revenge and didn't try to be a good person. So with the addition of the slave to fight for him, and Naofumi too being very much into selling potions and more, you can see the connection, right? But, whether or not Kyoruga may get a genuine bond with the slave, To the point of having a father-daughter relationship, who knows? All that is clear is that, unlike Naofumi and Raphtalia, this slave is of age, and add in she was a sex slave for a while, this could mean we're seeing the beginning of a harem. Just with the slave willingly loving Kyoruga, unlike Freya, who was brainwashed with bleach, there was this belief, that while Kyoruga was intelligent, in terms of revenge, maybe with everything else, he'd still be that farm boy. However, his explanation for why he used a merchant, even if he was a little weird, rather than sell the potion himself, it made sense. Also, why he needed a slave rather than an explorer or adventurer, again, Freya asked a good question, and Kyoruga delivered an exceptional answer. This leaves you to wonder, when it comes to Blade and Bullet, taking note of what happened to Flare, what will be done to them, since I doubt Kyoruga is going to recruit them, unless he is that off from center. He wouldn't do that, not from what he has been true. Now that's the end of episode 3, let's look at what's happened in episode 4. In episode 4, you may consider Kyoruga a saint, for not only rescuing Setsuna from slavery but vowing to allow her revenge against the humans of the Gyral Imperial Army, who were the reason she was enslaved. However, the method he uses to strengthen her may give you pause. Why? Well, because it requires him kissing her, having her give him fellatio, as well as him ejaculating inside her, which I enjoy watching. There is the possibility he could not only heal but strengthen her using his blood, but it seems Kyoruga wants a harem. Though it isn't clear yet if Freya is aware Kyoruga is taking advantage of Setsuna yet. So finally in episode 4, we are going to see some fighting. On the other hand, Setsuna can't wait too long. Kyoruga grants Setsuna's vengeance within a few days, but, just for his own kicks and giggles, Kyoruga also has Freya join in using her level 5 magic. Because, what's better than to have the princess kill part of the soldiers of her kingdom? Though it should be noted, Kyoruga joins too. He pretends to be the sword hero to help mow down enough Gyral Imperial Army soldiers, dressed as mercenaries, so Setsuna can finish the job. Thus leading to grand praise for her and Kyoruga having her loyalty forever. Though, considering all that happened to the Ice Wolf clan, Setsuna vengeance, and how Freya is without her family's influence, makes Kyoruga believe he needs to dismantle the kingdom for real change. The problem with that idea is that Leonard and King Gyral are aware of this, what Kyoruga did, and now Leonard is tasked with getting King Gyral's daughter back. This could be an issue, mainly if the other heroes and Freya's sister gets involved. You have to feel for Kyoruga, due to every episode, up until now, showing him drugged and raped, possibly daily. Yet, him letting Setsuna to believe she had to have sex with him to get stronger, that was exploitation, right? Considering he knows the extent of his powers, surely there could be other ways, or was his semen truly the only, or perhaps quickest, way for him to make her more powerful? And granted, Kyoruga does make a pledge to not kill people who have done him no harm, but is everything before murder a possibility? Will we possibly see what was done to Flare happen to Bullet and Blade? Yes, we saw blood spraying like rain, but didn't the violence almost seem tamed? We didn't see guts, any real gore, and people got their heads chopped off. Heck, even when Setsuna got her revenge, she wasn't ripping out jugulars or anything like that. Granted, saying all this can come off hypocritical, considering the level of shock we hit in regards to how Kyoruga has thus far gotten his revenge. But that's the problem with shocking anime, so that covers episode 4, guys. Let's look at episode 5 of the anime. Yes, we saw blood spraying like rain, but didn't the violence almost seem tamed? We didn't see guts, any real gore, and people got their heads chopped off. Heck, even when Setsuna got her revenge, she wasn't ripping out jugulars or anything like that. Granted, saying all this can come off hypocritical, considering the level of shock we hit in regards to how Kyoruga has thus far gotten his revenge. But that's the problem with shocking anime, so that covers episode 4, guys. Let's look at episode 5 of the anime. So in episode 5, Kyoruga predicted the merchant does attempt to betray him, and with that in mind, Kyoruga was ready to kill everyone that sided with the merchant. However, with him knowing his new name and not wanting that attention, it is agreed that for 500 gold pieces, Kyoruga will sell his recipe. Mind you, the source of the sickness is gone, and without Kyoruga's antibodies, the potion is useless. But, the merchant wanted to pull a fast one, so this is what they get. In any case, Kyoruga calling himself the hero of the sword, and using a blade associated with Kyoruga's family, she finds herself face to face with Kyoruga, under the impression he murdered soldiers trying to protect the White Wolf clan village. And despite Freya and Setsuna backing up his statement, Kyoruga decides to fight Kyoruga and ends up like everyone else. Smart, talented, yes, but ultimately not prepared for Kyoruga's tricks, including drugging Kyoruga. So afterwards Kyoruga used Freya to help push Kyoruga onto his side. For with Freya as Princess Flare, saying Leonard wanted to silence the princess, imprison Kyoruga, who reveals his true identity, and that all of this was done when they discovered the darker side of the kingdom. Kyoruga is broken. Her sense of justice is shown to be off, and pair that with the drugs Kyoruga gives her? Well, she ends up joining his harem, as we all expect. And we know, that is one too many for Setsuna and Freya, for while they participate in a threesome, both make it clear they prefer one-on-one sex with Kyoruga. But, it seems now, with another woman involved, sometimes they may just have to listen outside the door, hoping he has the stamina left so they can have a turn. The struggle that is Kyoruga seeming so powerful is that it makes everyone seem meek in comparison. However, with Kyoruga giving Kyoruga a run for his money in a rather entertaining fight, you can see him having to act calculated beyond how he usually handles situations. And while he ultimately won and subdued Kyoruga, just knowing people can still be a threat and injure him, that's all that matters. While Kyoruga should have no issue sacrificing Freya, due to her former life as Flare, and Setsuna due to her being a slave, he has some semblance of a bond too. Anna is different. As established earlier in the show, Anna raised Kyoruga, and while he hasn't spoken to her or sought her out, this doesn't mean she was forgotten. And considering we know what soldiers do, from enslavement to rape, I fully expect what we saw Kyoruga go through in his past life, Anna will deal with. Which perhaps will inject the sense of emotion that Redo Healer is slowly losing. It's still an uncomfortable relationship between Kyoruga, Setsuna, Freya, and now Kyoruga, since the power dynamics are weird. With Freya, you can't erase the fact he wiped her brain and manipulated her into thinking they're in some sort of relationship that allows him to have additional women. Then with Setsuna, she is clearly a young girl who hangs off Kyoruga due to him empowering her and giving her revenge. I mean, she thinks she grows stronger every time she is ejaculated in, for goodness sakes. Yet, even with how creepy Kyoruga's relationships are, there are moments you want to will yourself into believing maybe he genuinely cares about these women? That he doesn't just randomly have sex with Setsuna to flout his power, but because there is something there emotionally. Maybe with Freya, because she is sweet, an ally, and nothing like how she was when she was Flare. As weird as their relationship is, perhaps it can evolve? And mind you, this isn't to say we're trying to find ways to excuse Kyoruga's actions. We understand why Kyoruga acts this way towards Setsuna and Freya, is because he felt powerless and now is compensating for that. But, because it seems Kyoruga wants there to be some form of intimacy here, it's hard to tell if we should see growth through Kyoruga growing close to Setsuna and Freya. Especially since, for every moment Kyoruga expresses he is proud of Setsuna, just randomly being inserted. Never mind Kyoruga being added to his harem and the vibe that this is all about him satisfying himself. Thus showing, despite the appearance of trying to form a bond with these women, it doesn't mean it is due to love or affection. Simply put, it is because, with them becoming decaymatized, it means further protection for when something unplanned happens. One prime example is when the merchant decided to betray Kyoruga, and he was ready to sacrifice both Freya and Setsuna, who he knew would fight to the death for him. This feels like a growing problem for Redo if Healer, since Kyoruga's revenge has stalled a bit as he took on being an adventurer. Though perhaps what gets us is when it shows fish flailing, a dragon sleeping, or stuff like that. It doesn't have the same impact as when you knew Kyoruga was torturing Princess Flare. There is no feeling of being glad you don't know what's happening because you can imagine it. So, with no longer using Kyoruga's abuse as a quick and easy means to get a rise out of you, having uninspiring sex scenes and action scenes that are decent but won't leave you awestruck, what does Redo of Healer have to offer? It hasn't done much world building, and its character development is a bit sparse. So have we seen the best this has to offer? So that's it for episode 5. Let's move on to episode 6. So once again, in episode 6, we see Leonard is wanting revenge for taking the blame for Princess Flare's death, and being tortured. He wants to clear his name. But, how does one drive out someone who has the power to change their appearance? Well, by using what information you have on their whereabouts, and tout out of their village in hopes that some part of them still cares. Which, lucky for Leonard, despite how Kyoruga talks about members of his harem, the people in his village remain a soft spot for him, especially Anna. Hence Kyoruga sends Kyoruga to gather information as he covertly arranges a meetup with Leonard. Someone who he is told raped Anna in front of his village, and with using Heal and seeing what he did, Kyoruga makes Leonard into a woman and throws him to undesirables to experience just what Anna did, leading to Kyoruga rushing to save Anna, but he is too late. Thus, he decides to have vigorous sex with Setsuna and Freya too. Well, there is no other way to put it but, F the pain away. You might think that Kyoruga, with Anna now dead, would let the other villagers die simply due to less of a connection with them. However, he instead shows up at their execution to save them. Mind you, this is with acknowledging the Colosseum, where the executions are to take place, could be a trap. One that Princess Norn, one of Kyoruga's many torturers, may have set up. But thanks to Kyoruga is aware of what he may face and has a plan in place. However, is for pursuing to get vengeance on Princess Norn? Well, despite her being a horrible person like her sister in a past life, she hasn't been one to Kyoruga in this one. So she isn't his focus. More so, the fall of the Gyro Kingdom is the only thing on Kyoruga's mind, and he plans to tear it down by any means necessary. What's missing from Redo of Healer is heart. So with Anna's death and Kyoruga's village threatened, the show is finally steering us towards having something to care about. Because, with the delay on meeting Blade and Bullet, and Kyoruga getting revenge on them, Redo of Healer began to feel like it was too focused on side stories, and softcore hentai moments than anything else. Yet, with Kyoruga no longer on the run, being forced out of hiding could be what the show needs. Be it to fight Blade, Bullet, Princess Norn, if not the king himself. Add in Freya hearing the name of her sister makes her seem triggered. We might learn why Princess Flare was as screwed up as she was. At least if Princess Norn is the source of Princess Flare's former mentality. After watching the uncensored version, at least for this episode, I can firmly say that Redo of Healer can no longer rely on its use of rape scenes as a plot device. Be it Anna or Kyoru, while still disturbed by the use of rape, it has lost its shock value. Thus making us appreciate the censored version since it leaves you to imagine what horrors are being done. Similar to when you read a book. It's your imagination, what you believe is the worst that could happen, that drives how horrendous the moment is, while we get some are tantalized by animated nipples, bodily fluids flying, and sexual gestures. Redo of Healer isn't presenting you top-notch hentai. At best, you could submit it compensates for the pacing of the show, in terms of us finally seeing Kyoruga get his revenge on Bullet, Blade, and the others. But with no passion, no real build-up, unless you're really into porn, again, it doesn't make you feel like you're missing anything watching the censored version. For at this point, Setsuna, Flare, and Kyoru are mainly sex objects for Kyoruga's amusement. Making the possibility of him sacrificing them, as he seemed willing to before, a non-issue. So that's that. Now we're moving on to episode 7, so with Kyoruga having the heads up, he completely overpowers and utterly massacres those who planned to use the villagers as bait to kill him. However, we come to find out the villagers were poisoned before he even showed up, so whether he gave himself up or not, they would have died. Naturally, this upsets him, but with him believing Princess Norn is handling the situation, this felt expected. But, while many lives are lost, using Freya acting as Princess Flare, he is able to get the people to turn against the preacher who was orchestrating everything and cause an uprising. Also, he is able to save one kid who he knows may seek revenge against him, due to considering him to be the reason his whole village died. Which Kyoruga accepts, even is fine with, for it'll keep the kid alive during the days to come. So, with Princess Norn thwarted, where to next? Well, Branica. Why? Well, Princess Norn, who seems to want demi-humans dead or enslaved, refuses to tolerate a place where humans and magical beings coexist, so it has to be destroyed. However, with her not beginning the expedition just yet, Kyoruga plans to get there first and find the demon lord who he defeated in his past life. Though it should be noted, we're on a new timeline now, and so Kyoruga doesn't have replaying history on his side any longer. So whatever Princess Norn has planned, if Kyoruha doesn't warn Kyoruga, he'll be walking in blind. Redo of Healer is currently scheduled for 12 episodes, and we're past the halfway mark. As noted previously, the physical and sexual violence shock has worn off, and with a delay in seeing Kyoruga get revenge on Blade and Bullet, and now Princess Norn stepping in, it feels a little off track. Yet, with the boy living after the massacre and Kyoruga predicting hate in his heart, maybe he might do something to give this show an epic end. You know, beyond the possibility of an orgy, so episode 7 doesn't have much to cover up on, so let's move on to episode 8 of the anime. Okay, so in episode 8 of Redo Healer, we learn the history of the integrated city known as Branica. Kyoru acquires a new member to his harem, who is part of his larger plans to change the world. To begin, we're told the history of Branica. It was a border town deserted by the Gyral Kingdom nearly 20 years ago, and it is thanks to a feudal lord that we see the coexistence of demons and humans. Mind you, this didn't come easy, but with demons appreciating human culture and humanity liking the benefits of techniques and magic of demons, peace exists, that in providing blood or paying taxes to help maintain the peace, which, for Kyoru, sets a precedent he would like to see spread. However, he has to keep Eve, the demon lord he met in his previous life, alive for that to happen. This is a bit of a challenge, for he has 4 years to go before she'd ascend, and with Eve being part of the Black Wing tribe, she is hunted. Why? Well, the current demon lord ordered a genocide of that tribe due to them being the tribe that produced the former lord, and they are not only unique but powerful, and it makes Eve a notable target. With Eve being targeted as she is, Kyoru talking about protecting her comes off real suspicious. However, he confesses his reasoning, and while it doesn't put Eve at ease, it gives her something to think about. But what perhaps seals the deal is Eve wakes up to find Kyoru's morning routine of sex with both girls in his harem. This leaves her a bit excited and nervous, and while Kyoru says he won't force her, there is a bit of pressure applied. All I know is, Eve's revenge plot better be more interesting than Setsuna if we're taking out a demon lord. For with the shock and awe of the sex gone, and the violence, we need another Kyoruha fight where Kyoru and his team aren't at this massive advantage. There is a need, and perhaps desire, to see them struggle as they face off against someone immensely powerful, and can't be found and taken down all in one episode. Especially since Kyoru's revenge on Blade and Bullet keeps getting pushed back. It's interesting how Kyoru blurs the lines of morality to how he sees fit. The prime example being, he didn't force Setsuna go in bed with him but made it seem it was the only way for her to be stronger, thus making her an addict like he was to drugs. Now, with Eve, he teases her youthful appearance and basically uses reverse psychology to get her to go in bed with him. Leaving you to wonder, did Kyoru change his drug addiction for ex-addiction? Granted, it isn't like he has to do what he wants at a moment's notice, but with him going through a drug addiction and building a tolerance, should we consider this show being potentially deeper than it probably is? That is in Kyoru moving from one addiction to another. Let's wait and see. Okay, so we're moving on to episode 9. In any case, Kyoru begins the job of protecting Eve, Princess Norn and one of Kyoru's targets, for revenge arrive in Branica. Eve is really uncomfortable with Kyoru, Setsuna, and Freya's threesomes, but it comes with the protection. Plus, if Eve is honest, she is intrigued after seeing Kiru's Excalibur. Plus, the sounds she hears? Well, they do turn her on a bit. Mind you, being in the room still causes discomfort, but she isn't going to lie that she isn't still looking through her fingers and with her ears peaked. She wants Excalibur. Anyway, for Eve to become Demon Lord, she needs more than just Kiru. She also needs Caladrius, a divine bird of disease that can either spread or end them. Also, she has to take a trip around the planet, amongst other things. But, before getting to all that, Kiru has to handle the members of the Mad Cow tribe, which he does, in the only way he knows how. Be it breaking their limbs or having their iron-head cow, they usually ride them. Which, with being violated in such a way, it leads them to open up about whether anyone else knows of Eve or is coming after her, of which the answer is no, with giving them more than enough time. Norn, Blade, and the members of Princess Norn's Order of Holy Lane arrive in Branica. This draws Kiru's attention since, while Norn is worrisome, Blade is a different story. Plus, Blade, like Bullet, are on Kiru's revenge list, and with Blade coming to him, it seems almost divine. For now, it is time for her getting just desserts, and with Freya and Setsuna by his side, Eve as well, he may have what he needs to enact justice. We've known of Blade's existence forever and saw what she did early in the season. However, there was a serious question of when Kiru's revenge on her would be focused on since so much attention was put into building his harem. Well, we got our answer for with her showing up with Princess Norn. It means revenge should be coming soon. Now, considering Kiru, by accident, caused bestiality and got a member of the Mad Cow tribe raped by their own pet, who knows what may come to Blade. I mean, let's not forget all Princess Flare went through before her mind was wiped, nor her being a borderline slave in her current life, since we don't know the full extent of Kiru's heal magic. So we're moving on to the third to last episode of the anime. While Kiru believes he may finally have a face-to-face chance with Blade, between Norn and someone named Hawkeye, will he get his chance for revenge? From a bell tower, Kiarga spots his target, Blade, but also someone named Hawkeye. Now, not much is said about Hawkeye, beyond him being a hero, and it seems clear Hawkeye can see far beyond what an average human can. Thus, he is a threat. But not one Kiaruga has any reason to attack, so he isn't put into his plan. Rather, working with Carmen, the merchant we met in the last episode, Kiaruga, once more, tries to set up a consistent stream of income in order to pay for travel expenses. Which, with Carmen not greedy like the other merchant, it seems this relationship will last as long as Carmen doesn't get himself killed. With Blade establishing herself as a local rapist, taking advantage of girls going to a local bar, Kiaruga begins to put a plan in place. One that has him consider using Freya or Setsuna, but he cares for them too much to let them be potentially broken by Blade. Especially since Blade, whether dealing with a man or woman, likes to drug them, tie them up, and have their way with them. So, since it is safer, Kiaruga simply transforms himself into a girl, who he names Kira, and has Freya make him up. But, being that this is redo with healer, despite Setsuna not into girls and Freya thinking this is slightly weird, they both pounce on Kira and have some fun. Which, after all that is done, Kira heads out to the bar, and we're reminded that, no matter how Kyoruga looks like, his powers remain. Hence him whooping a few dudes' ass. However, when it comes to Blade, things are a bit more difficult. Why? Well, because Blade's a date rapist, and despite Kyoruga having a tolerance to many a drug, he isn't utterly immune. Thus, when roofied and forced to swallow by an aggressive kiss, he gets knocked out. This doesn't last long, though. But rather than be in a quiet area where Kira can have the upper hand, unfortunately, Kira not being knocked out is revealed because Blade throws her in the air to handle someone whose daughter was raped by Blade. Note, Blade has maybe been there for a few days, and already they can name 4 people they assaulted. That aside, with Kira knocking that guy out too. Land softly and then fighting Blade, so comes Blade unsheathing their hero's weapon, the sacred sword, Ragnarok. This puts Blade at an advantage Kira can't overcome since the sword increases Blade's strength and healing abilities. So any tricks Kira does are quickly healed from, including poison. Thus, Kira loses round 1. Round 2, however, Kira wins for without the sacred sword, Ragnarok. Kira has the ability to overpower Blade. Which means, you guessed it, it is time for revenge. Being that Kyoruga, Kira, whichever name you prefer, oftentimes overpowers whoever they are facing, gaining a sense that there still are formidable opponents out there. It made things interesting. Especially since it was Blade 4, after building her up for so long and holding off the two coming face to face, it made their fight all the more noteworthy. Be it when they were on the streets or when Blade was ready to rape Kira. This leads me to wonder, when Bullet comes onto the scene, or even when if Kira faces Princess Norn, may we end up not getting this Herculean comeback. Blade lived up to the hype. They weren't just screwed up in Kira's past life, but this one too, and considering maybe only a night passed, at a minimum, and already Blade claims assaulting 4 girls. Oh, it flared up all the hatred from when they were beating and doing who knows what to Kira. But, we gotta admit, I appreciate that the show conveyed Blade deserved what's coming to them without us having to see what they did to someone. It reminds me of when Kira got his revenge on Princess Flare and, with watching the censored version, you didn't know what happened, so your imagination could run wild. I'm not sure who Hawkeye is, but considering some demons can see through Kira's disguises, imagine if Hawkeye can see through his as well? Alongside that, what if Hawkeye reports Kira to Princess Norn? As shown, Kira is capable of a lot, if he fights you one-on-one or with Setsuna, now Eve, and Freya. However, if it is 2-on-1, with Kira at a disadvantage, it leaves you wondering how he could deal with the situation? Especially if he can't get his hands on the other person and use heal. Now, we're on the second to final episode of Redo Healer. Okay, let's get into it. Kira uses his heal powers on the unconscious Blade to extract information about Norn's plans the city. He takes Blade to a random theater where he subjects her to a cruel and unusual game. Kira has drugged up 3 men on a hunger and lust potion, and if Blade wants to live, then she needs to pleasure them more. Otherwise, she will be eaten. And so, the game begins as Kira, still in his gender-bent state, by the way, sits in front of the stage, enjoying some lamb chops and wine. Midway through, he decides to give Blade support, more like sabotage, by changing his appearance and voice to Princess Flare. Thinking that the fake Flare is real, Blade's heart breaks and loses her will to keep going. Cannibalized by the three men, Blade dies and her sword, Ragnarok, returns to its original state, an orb. Triumphant, Kiru takes the orb and laughs on his way out. Kiru meets up with the merchant Carmen again, but immediately senses danger when Hawkeye Trist, one of the three heroes of Gyro Kingdom, approaches him from behind undetected. Hawkeye reveals that he knew Kiru was spying on the Gyro army, though the latter plays it off as a mere investigation. The warrior also tries to recruit the protagonist to the kingdom, impressed by his alchemy skills. Kiru declines and Hawkeye is about to leave before he gives him a stern warning to not meddle. The episode cuts to Kiru alone in an inn room, looking in the orb that used to be Blade's Ragnarok. He touches the orb and demands it to give him the power that he needs to save the world. The holy armament grants him the power and transforms into a gauntlet, with a creepy eye, called Georgius. Amazed by its potential, Kiru breaks out into a maniacal laugh. Just moments later, another bedroom scene. The next day, Norn presents herself to the citizens of Buranica. She claims that the demons are taking advantage of the humans and the humans are brainwashed. Some of the citizens protest against her bogus allegations and it escalates to the point that one of the townspeople attempts to assassinate Norn. It turns out that it was staged so Norn can find the excuse to indiscriminately execute the townspeople. Unfortunately, among the chaos, the Gyro soldiers kill Carmen as he tries to help the others escape. Kiru finds him, but it is too late and he swears revenge on the soldiers. He summons Georgius, which turns out to have auto-healing capabilities, and goes on a rampage. Meanwhile, Norn is wondering why the feudal lord of Buranica still has not surrendered. The episode concludes with a random soldier informing her that a mysterious swordsman is wreaking havoc on the army. Okay, so that's it for today guys. If you enjoyed, remember to leave a like and subscribe. Stay tuned to see the final episode.